My name is Keyanna. Welcome to Power Your Story Season 9, a podcast from School Matters and Creative and Positive Studios in Chicago. This season, our theme is experiences. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Power Your Story podcast. Today you'll be listening to an episode that was recorded 2 years ago in 2020.
This episode is about the COVID-19 pandemic and how we were dealing with it.
When listening back to the episode, I thought about how far we've come. A lot has changed. People are going out more and less scared.
I agree. We're no longer quarantined in our homes and are back in-person school full-time. There's a vaccine being offered to people and mask mandates have been lifted.
The episode made me think about when I was at home and couldn't see my friends. I was sad because I wasn't able to see them.
This episode caused us to reflect on how different our lives were in 2020 compared to now.
I feel like they're easing up on mask mandates. Life is going back to how it used to be. People are going out more. Life is much different how it is when it started. And like one of my friends said, Jacob, he said that the pandemic feels like the new normal. We got used to the change that came with. I really agree with that because like now wearing a mask, being like careful, washing your hands, not touching all of these things are now like the like normals of life now. And the paranoia has gone down a lot and people are just altogether like less scared.
Yeah, I agree. The first thing I think about grabbing when I go outside is a mask. I make sure I have extra masks on me because for a long time we had to have extra masks or we had to have masks in general. And if your mask broke, then you might have been out of luck.
I agree because stores were like borderline not allowing you to go in to them if you did not have a face mask. So now it's just like an instinct to make sure you have face masks, an extra one just in case, just to be safe wherever you're going and what you're doing.
When listening to this episode, what reflections do you think you'll have? Does it make you think about how your life was in 2020 compared to now? How have things changed for you today in 2022?
I would like to say that my life has changed a lot. And when I do think back on like the pandemic and when it first started, I was a totally different person. I feel like this pandemic and just this COVID thing really helped me grow and it really helped me work on myself and grow into a better me. So I think that was kind of one of the better things that I know. One of the things that I noticed when looking back on this older episodes in 2020, and it really makes me proud of myself.
Adrian, do you think you've grown a lot since 2020 when the pandemic first started?
Yeah, I learned about Google Meet and how I do work from Google Classroom.
Yeah, those are things we would have never known without COVID becoming a huge thing in 2020.
I want to agree with what Adrian said a whole lot. Like, I remember before the pandemic started, Google Classroom was just like there. It was basically useless because we all used to do our work written and in the class. And when the pandemic started, Google Classroom became so much more of a big part of our like school and the work that we do. So much so that even now, even while we're going to school, like in person, Google Classroom is still a big part of our work and things we do as far as school.
I agree. I still use Google Classroom in my classes a lot. My teachers rarely hand us papers because we still do have a few students who are online. So I think it's just easier if they put everything online and have us do work through Chromebooks.
I agree. And I feel like with it being online, I feel like it helped students be able to have more accessibility towards their grades, being able to check their grades, looking at what assignments need to be done. They gave students more like accessibility and more control over their work ethic and their grade. Thank you for listening to us discuss and talk about COVID-19 and like our reflections from when 2020 when it first started. And we hope listening to this original table discussion helps you process the experiences that you had over the past 2 years since this all began.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Power Your Story podcast. My name is Aliyah, and today we will be talking about our experiences during 2020. What is it like in the beginning in March when we first had to go to shelter in place because of COVID-19?
It was honestly very nerve-wracking, like just being in the house, not being able to go outside. I didn't realize how much leaving my house and going to school actually made me interact with people. I noticed myself just locking myself in my room and not spending much quality time with my family.
Also, you notice that your mood kind of gets affected at the same time when you're at home. You're kind of like more tired, less energy, less motivated to do certain things.
From the beginning in March, I thought the COVID-19 will go away really fast. Since now we've been stuck at home all day since we cannot go out. You cannot go places to have fun like the weekend, like going to hang out with family, go to stores, shopping, go to movies or anything like that. So just stay home, being bored, doing nothing. Well, it's been like a rough ride.
It's also that people like feel since they're locked into like their houses, they feel alone. I mean, obviously they have their families, but it's not exactly the same because you don't really get those same experiences you get when you're with your friends and hanging out with them and playing sports and things like that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
not everyone has a stable home life. Like some homes are very toxic and it's a bad environment, and they go to school and leave their house to get away from that. So being stuck there is the best.
So my next question is, how are you feeling right now? And how is it affecting your mental health and what you can do about it?
Well, right now, I mean, we've been at it for a while now, so I'm kind of more adjusted, I could say. But I mean, as far as like sensing how I'm mentally, mentally, I feel like we all still feel that sense of aloneness, even though we see each other online, because you don't get the same physical contact as you do with people, like shaking hands, hugging, or giving high fives and things like that.
Honestly, I've seen some ups and downs. Honestly, like I've seen some ups because I haven't got sick ever since the pandemic. Like, it's like sometimes every once in a while I might get sick when I'm in school. But like when I'm in the online school, it's like a better experience and I don't have that much of a physical or mental problem or anything going on with me. But despite the pandemic, even though we can't see each other in person, that's the only one thing I miss during this pandemic is meeting everybody in person. Like that's what I miss. It's like you lost connection if you don't meet people in person. But like good news is though that we can still talk with each other in other ways. So that way we'll be able to keep connecting with each other.
I would say that I'm doing so much better now than before because before I was like a bit stressed and confused about the whole thing because it was like we're just like having to deal with the situation at first. You're like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm bored. So like that made me very stressed because I was like just in my house. So now that I'm used to it, I'm like very much better than it. And I know like what to do when I'm bored.
I agree with everyone else. I think I'm definitely doing better. I'm just grateful that I'm healthy and that I haven't gotten it and none of my close family members have. I think with school starting back up, that added a little bit more stress to my plate just because we're like way more into it now. I feel like at the end of the school year last year when we were online school, it was kind of just like, oh, whatever, like you don't really have to do it. But now, like, teachers are packing on a lot of work and it's sort of way more confusing. But
Hmm.
it's something to adjust to.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think far as just like online school? Like you've been used to it for a long time. It's just like, how do you feel like going back to school? Do you want to or not?
I feel like for online school, it's kind of in the beginning, it wasn't really ready and it was kind of rushed just because people wanted to have something in place just so they could say, oh, yeah, we're prepared and we're ready to manage these kids when they really weren't. They didn't have anything planned. It was more of like a wing it type of situation where they were making things on the spot and just throwing whatever they could together. But now I feel like since we're midway into it, I feel like we're better now because there's more support to open and available. Back then, there used to be there's separate links you can go to for when you need to talk to someone or like when you need support in general. And now you can also they offered you more support as far as like when people don't have good internet or things like that. They give you support in that area.
Hmm.
Well, I don't feel comfortable going back to school in the building because like you don't know who has COVID or nothing. Like you gotta like basically like be aware of your surroundings. You gotta wear a mask. I'm not the type of person. I'm not gonna be wearing no mask in no school like that because I got asthma and I got different underlying illnesses going on.
Even if they take the proper precautions.
Yeah, I'm still staying in the online school because it's too small. Because like the school is too small. Like, how are you gonna make all that social distance? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, now that we have the option, I feel like it's better. At least for me, I feel like it's more. I would rather prefer to stay home because even though we do have like we don't get to see people as often, I want to say you feel more comfortable when you're at home, and when you're outside of your home, you feel more nervous and high alerted, I guess. So I personally, I enjoy being at home now that I got like a little bit of my bearings on it. I would say I'd rather stay home than go back to school.
Has anybody think anything good about the pandemic? Any skills you have learned?
I would say just learning how to like use certain applications in school, like for like the computer, because you kind of have to like pick up certain skills with it, especially when it doesn't work.
Yeah, I would agree. I've become much more tech savvy.
There has been a lot of good things for me, honestly. I became more open about myself, and I started to accept myself the way I am. Before, I think I took quarantine as a time for me to discover myself more and accept for the person I am. So I actually became more open about my sexual orientation and started being more open about what pronouns I use, and started being confident with my friends and telling them, okay, I want you to use these pronouns and accept me for who I am, and I was able to talk with them and be open about it. So I think that was a good thing about me, because I was so insecure, not being open about it. So I think I decided to take some steps forward and started to be open to some people I trust for now, until I'm fully open to telling my parents and things.
And I kind of agree with Clara because like when you're in public and you're like talking to people, sometimes you feel like you have to kind of wear a mask because you don't know how they're going to react, and you're kind of scared to go against what people like what's socially acceptable, and like you get judged for things you do and things like that. So I can see where you're coming from with that.
So I know it's just it's been a rough year. So it's just things like that. It's just some people can be optimistic about things.
I mean, the one good thing would have to be that we all kind of had to look at ourselves, and I would say that some of us maybe even learned how to value ourselves better instead of letting people put us down.
Yeah, definitely a period for self-reflection.
I agree on that because I did a lot of self reflection. Just for me, it's just I'm trying to embrace the idea of hope, the idea of just waiting to just not really waiting, just wishing yourself the best and as well as others the best. Because for me, it's just I've just been stuck home, bored, doing the exact same thing every day, just not really doing much. And when I'm out, it feels a little bit it feels good to go outside. Just what I'm trying to say. It's just a fresher breath. I can't even say it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Fresh breath, air. Sorry.
Breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I'm trying to say that.
We
Just
know what
that.
you meant.
And I agree. Just as far as just COVID-19, it's just it's terrible. And a lot of people have died because of it, and just things like that. I just want my family to be safe, as well as me myself, because it's just things like that. We're tired, and it's gonna be continuing even years afterwards. So it's just things like that. Is just we have to just be more optimistic. Alejandro?
I almost lose my job.
Al, do you have anything to say?
I think
Go.
2020 is a very, very rough year for us, to be honest. It's a rough year because, all school closed or everything rough for us, like pump checks. Also, it's very, very rough for us, even to this, right now, to this day. And I think, And I think it would be hope part next year, but it's all depends on the situation though.
For me, this year has been like year of just like self-reflection and stuff, and just trying to get my kind of life together with school and trying to get a job, and because by this time next year I want to eventually have a car, so I'm trying to get a job. So it's been a crazy year. I'm very nervous to see what 2021 has in store for us. I just feel like this year's been a year to test us.
I agree.
Well, it's
Jayvon?
getting easier at home. I'm getting smarter out here. I use the computer to study and doing some puzzles and others.
I got all the stuff I need to entertain myself with.
Well, all I can say is 2020 is like any other year usually. It's like the normal average year, but it's just like things are going to have their ups and downs. Not every year is going to be perfect every time. So I think of it as, in a sense, like, you know, you're going to get tested with trials and tribulations every day. So
I have had my ups and downs with COVID, but as of right now, I'm doing okay. Like, I'm getting through it, taking it one step at a time.
All I gotta say is that I hope next year is better, because this year wasn't that great at all, and well, hopefully the elections don't make it worse than it is now.
But yeah, just right now, just 2020 for me it's really a rough year. Just knowing that just like a lot of people are losing jobs, but also just dealing with a sickness and lots of other things just that's been happening in the past. Especially for me, it's just like graduation that's been like sort of like being changed. My year is just in school. Even though I was devastated, I find a way to just feel better about myself and my situation, knowing it's not my fault that COVID-19 is affecting everybody. And you shouldn't blame yourself. I'm just hoping everybody will just stay safe, stay well, and just spend your last of this 2020 with a good smile on your face, knowing you're dealing with a lot, but you're surviving. I would like to thank everyone for being here on Power Your Story podcast, and I hope everybody is doing well. Stay safe, and hopefully this pandemic will end. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Power Your Story podcast is produced by Chicago high school students with production support from After School Matters and the Creative Imposter Studios.
Our theme music is by our very own Genaro Jackson, aka Professor DJ Sparks. Give it up. You can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pandora. We are on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, as well as Power Your Story Podcast. Follow us and share our show with friends and family.
Thank you for listening. Peace.